Having access to useful information allows you to learn how to code on Roblox a lot more easily. To start, here are some amazing resources which will also be in the description. Roblox's education website has dozens of structured guides that provide insight into how you can apply different coding concepts to your projects inside of Roblox Studio. There's even a Code Fundamentals series that contains 30 individual guides, beginning with the absolute basics before working through tables, loops, module scripts, and more. Similarly, the Roblox Developer Hub is another place with short-form articles about specific subjects. Alongside this, the API reference can be found here, which has documentation and explanations for various elements of coding. For example, if you don't know what a GUI is, not only is there an article that explains the basics, but there are individual pages that explain each property or characteristic of the different kinds of GUIs. However, if you get confused about something and are unable to find an answer there, the Roblox Developer Forum is a fantastic place for asking questions, finding detailed answers in open source projects, along with so much more. By using the search feature on the forum, you might find threads with answers to the exact same questions you have, which especially help with solving complex problems. During this process, it's extremely important to make sure you abide by the recommended coding practices so that your code is easy to understand and edit, no matter who's reading it. This is where Roblox's Lua style guide GitHub page is your best friend. Created by Roblox staff, this outlines the suggested standards for formatting your code to prevent bad habits from forming, which could ultimately slow down your development progress. In addition to this, Roblox has also published several creator challenge places, which include hands-on learning about different aspects of development, with prizes that you can collect for completing each one. Aside from these resources, there are countless YouTube channels and tutorials that can provide value for specific aspects of development. As you continue learning, however, YouTube tutorials might be better as a visual aid or supplementary resource for learning, as practicing and experimenting in Roblox Studio on your own will allow you to put any newly acquired information to use while also practicing your recall abilities. This comes with the exception for concepts that are better explained in a visual format, alongside several other reasons. Regardless, two channels that I greatly recommend, aside from my own, include Alvinblocks and Okienski, both of which I admire greatly for their approaches toward development and content creation. Take note of these resources in a place that you can easily find whenever you want. Over time, add anything that helps you learn onto this list. From here, you're ready for the next step in the learning process. Even if you have all the resources you need, it's crucial to ensure that you're able to learn from them effectively. A great way to begin optimizing how you learn could begin with taking notes of key information from the resources you're using. This will allow you to focus on the fundamentals that make up different concepts, decreasing the likelihood that something overwhelms you. If this process gets boring over time, you could motivate yourself to continue learning by taking inspiration from things that interest you and trying your best to use your current knowledge to create something related to it. Even if you end up going through some rough patches of debugging, optimizing code, and more, you'll have a greater chance at pushing through with the project and continuing to learn more from it, since you have an alternative form of motivation rather than relying solely on your desire to improve your development skills. However, hoping that your motivation is strong enough to get work done is not an optimal strategy, as it's not always possible to maintain high levels of motivation every single day. In order to prevent this from being an inhibitor to your learning, here are some potential strategies you can use. The first method involves the path of least resistance, which is a general term that can describe the easiest decision to make. An example of this could be playing video games before starting homework. Because homework tends to be demanding and requires a lot of focus, you might resist starting it until later on. In this case, the path of least resistance would be playing video games first, because it oftentimes doesn't take as much discipline in comparison to the other choice. However, this can be modified over time to make it easier to choose one over the other. If you're adamant about learning how to script on Roblox, I'd advise you to make small adjustments to your environment that prevent any distractions. For instance, if you check your phone a lot when it isn't necessary, You can move it to another room or place it somewhere that takes slightly more effort to get to. This means that it might take a stronger urge in order to convince yourself to go get it, which could slowly prevent that action from being the path of least resistance. On the other hand, the second method includes taking breaks, more specifically, the 15-to-5 rule. The basis of the 15-to-5 rule is that you should spend 15 minutes of time working on something, with 5-minute breaks afterward before repeating the process. This self-imposed rule requires you to be disciplined, as you should be trying your best to maintain complete focus on the task at hand for the entire duration of time until you begin your break. You can always scale or change the amount of time to suit your needs, but make sure the duration of your break is shorter than the amount of time focusing on work. Outside of this 15-to-5 rule, taking regular breaks is important to maintain a healthy balance between different aspects of your life, especially when preventing burnout. If you ever reach the point of burnout, evaluate the distribution of your time into working hard versus working smart, since consistently working 8 hours a day on something in an inefficient way may lead to worse results than working on something 1 hour a day in a very efficient manner. In order to ensure that your optimizations allow you to continue learning in the best way possible, consider the realisticness of the expectations and goals that you have established. If the goal is something extraordinary, such as making a front-page Roblox game, progression might feel slower and you may be more likely to lose track of the journey that you're enduring. By setting your goals closer, for example, learning how to change the color of an object when something specific happens in your game, it'll be much easier to keep track of your progression and maintain a pace that's right for you. Learning how to code can be like learning a language in many different ways. For example, the order of words in a sentence is important to make sure that other people understand what you are saying. Similarly, when coding in Roblox, you need to make sure that you arrange certain keywords and phrases in the right order so the game will know what it needs to do. The amount of time it takes to garner a solid understanding of coding syntax can be mitigated or reduced by learning from a variety of perspectives. In order to understand why this is important, let's explore the concepts of self-directed learning and self-regulated learning. To start, self-directed learning revolves around the bigger picture of establishing your learning trajectory and understanding the general steps that are required to accomplish your goals. On the other hand, self-regulated learning takes place on a smaller scale, dealing with the planning, optimization, and evaluation of how you perform specific tasks inside of the overarching trajectory. As an example, imagine you want to create a large game on Roblox for the first time. If you utilize self-directed learning, you might first decide what the end goal of the project is going to be, whether it's to create a game that earns you money, or simply learn how to work on a large-scale project. This is the baseline that determines your learning trajectory. Afterward, you might consider hiring other developers in order to fulfill the goal that you have created. An aspect of self-regulated learning during this process could include figuring out the best way to recruit developers for your project. As an example, you might plan this out by creating a document that explains what roles are needed, such as programmers, builders, etc., templates that others will fill out in order to apply for the job, in addition to the place that the recruitment post will be published, which could be the Roblox developer forum. While the macro-level processes involved in creating that game started with figuring out what you wanted to learn, and if you needed other people to help along the way, the individual steps on the micro-level that dealt with optimizing the recruitment process demonstrated specific processes that are important to ensure that everything goes smoothly. The importance of those general concepts are supported by a well-renowned professor of educational psychology, Barry J. Zimmerman, who was a large proponent of self-regulated learning. He determined that self-regulation enables the learner to utilize feedback loops in order to improve their future performance during certain tasks because they are able to see how their preparation and actions contributed toward the end result. Now that we have a general understanding of these concepts, let's move on to some ideas that you're more likely to remember. The first of which involves asking questions when something isn't working as expected. What kind of questions, you might be wondering? Well, that depends on each scenario. And no, this doesn't mean always asking, why doesn't this work, every time you encounter something that didn't go as planned, since that doesn't diagnose the problem. More effective questions could be, what part of the script isn't working properly? Or, what could I do to solve this issue? Being more specific with your questions increases the chances of narrowing down what is causing something to happen, in addition to the steps that are needed to solve it, especially if you create a list of useful resources during the first step of the video. By treating these situations as a learning opportunity rather than a roadblock, you're enabling yourself to adopt more open-minded approaches when encountering future issues as you continue learning what kinds of questions are the most effective. Try to maintain that mindset as we move into the next idea, which includes creating projects. As mentioned toward the end of the environment optimization step, the projects you create during the beginning of your development journey should not be too far-fetched in relation to your capabilities. To elaborate further, this is because starting off by creating an entire game oftentimes requires moderate to complex scripting knowledge. If unfamiliar with the fundamentals, bad habits will develop unnoticed because there are a plethora of factors that must be considered when creating a game. By being mindful and spending an adequate amount of time focused on individual concepts, you may find it easier in the long term to combine each new concept with other aspects of scripting. If you've spent a lot of time practicing or learning something, such as the lyrics of a song, how to play an instrument, or even the best strategies to win more often in a game, you probably understand the amount of effort it takes to learn something new. Eventually, you might reach the point where most of the process is subconscious from muscle memory. This same concept applies with scripting, which is why it's important to consistently work on and incorporate the fundamentals, or basics, into the projects that you take on. This allows you to continue familiarizing yourself with scripting to improve your understanding of it to a level where you won't have to spend as much time individually working on it in the future. During this process, don't be afraid of making mistakes and asking questions when you need help, as that is a natural part of learning. As long as you're aware of your weaknesses and attempt to improve upon them over time, you are actively learning more. No matter the skill level of a developer, mistakes will be made, questions will be asked, and solutions will eventually be found. On a similar note, this idea is supported by a well-respected developer and longtime member of the Roblox community, CrazyMan32, now known as Slightnick, who had a fantastic talk during RDC 2019 that expanded upon the uses of procedural generation. To add on to this, it's crucial to understand that no matter if you know something now, it doesn't mean that you'll have the same understanding of it given a week's time. If you're really comfortable with something such as creating functions, remember that there's always more you can learn. Exploring something that you are unfamiliar with can be a very daunting task once you get started. As an example, here's a box. The image on the bottom left corner of the box represents the skill of a novice, and the image at the top right of the box represents the level of understanding they think they need to reach to know it all. As they get closer to that point, the level of understanding they believe they needed to reach gets further and further away. This process continues, and over time, it becomes clear that the mountain they tried to climb was steeper than it seemed. Despite the novice potentially feeling unsatisfied that they do not know everything, their constant drive to continue chasing the next goal by exploring the realms of something that was previously out of their reach is important to understand. Not only does this demonstrate outsider and/or beginner ignorance, where we sometimes underestimate the complexity involved when learning certain skills, but it also accentuates the power of intrinsic motivation, which is essentially when you're doing something without regard for external factors, such as someone telling you to do something. In order to explain why this is important, briefly covering the related concept of locus of control can bring it all together. Locus of control is an element of psychologist Julian B. Rotter's social learning theory of personality, which determines whether someone believes what happens to them in life is more reliant on themselves and their own abilities, an internal locus of control, or if outside influences have more control over them, an external locus of control. Under the assumption that an individual who possesses an internal locus of control takes part in activities due to intrinsic motivation, that individual is approaching the task in a manner that is extremely optimized to learn something extensive such as coding. This is because of how your mindset influences the decisions that you make, especially when exploring the unknown. Take the RB Battles events as an example. The organizers behind the events are not Roblox employees. They're just a couple of YouTubers that wanted to try something new, have fun, and explore uncharted territory while they were at it. This is especially so with Season 2 of the event, where there was an entire game dedicated for RB Battles, created by an incredible team of developers. A variety of other games on Roblox were included alongside this, which the participating YouTubers played as well, providing a large-scale and near collaborative experience between the community and their favorite creators, which hadn't been done before. And even if something of that magnitude isn't as easily attainable for someone like me or you, remember that there is always something new you can explore along the way. This final step has no name. This final step has no definitive direction. This final step is up to you. If you've reached this point, it's ultimately your decision if you believe that learning to code is something you want to pursue, regardless if it ends up being a hobby or a career. It's crucial to understand that it won't be easy at the start of the road. Most paths begin unpaved, and that's no different on this platform. If you turn back time, this was the same with Roblox itself. It's been evolving extensively throughout the years, through the good and the bad, and it's still here. It's still continuing to grow, and it's still continuing to cement a foundation for what's next. So if there's anything you can do to create your own path, it's to make sure that you don't watch the clock. Instead, do what it does. Keep on going.